I am so excited to have Merel Kriegsman on the show today. Merel Kriegsman and I have a history going back 4 years, and I have watched her bloom and explode. I don't know why I'm talking about you in the third person. I've watched you bloom and explode almost overnight, and we need to talk about it. So Merel, welcome to the Global Phenomenon. I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to be here. I was just thinking, like, this is a blast from the past. It's so lovely to just, be with you and be in your presence. It's been way too long. So I'm super happy to be here today.
Definitely. So before we dive in, because we have some things to talk about here, why don't you tell everyone what is it that you do right now and who you serve?
Yeah. So basically, bottom line is that I help people get lavishly paid to be themselves. Like that's my goal. There is this interesting phenomenon in global phenomenon. We're talking about phenomena on the Global Phenomenon podcast. But there's this interesting phenomenon where we tend to undervalue the work that comes to us most easily, and the work that comes to us most easily is usually our most valuable work. Right. So what we do is we take experts who, they're really good at what they do and they have built a solid reputation, but also, right, there is sort of space for them to simplify their offers and to really hone in on, like, what do I actually do the absolute best, right? It's like nobody can do it like me. Paired with sort of this whole idea of like what comes to me most easily, and we help them monetize that into the $1 million level. So very, very exciting work and very, very fulfilling. Yeah.
That is amazing. And I'm gonna tell you, I can't wait to really dive into how you landed and chose this niche, because you have been doing an amazing job. You have a Facebook group called Rewilding Wealth, and we're gonna get to talk all about that. But before we do, I like to go back to before you were a global phenomenon, right? Like what life was like. And you have a very, very unique story that involves cleaning toilets, being an opera singer. So I want everybody to hear that from you. Before this whole online world happened, can you tell us what was happening back then?
Yeah, for sure. So I come from a family that has a lot of like artists, and that's a very artistic sort of atmosphere that I grew up with. And so I always joke, like, the way that some people are expected to become like a dentist or a lawyer, right? I was expected to become an artist. It was sort of like, yeah, of course you're going to go like study music, like, yes, that's what we do. So it's like very much the culture within my family and how I was brought up. And so I studied singing, became an opera singer, and I was really successful with it. I was really building a beautiful career. At one point, I was winning competitions like issued by the Vatican, and with worldwide broadcasting. It was all happening, but also I wasn't getting paid, and that started to hurt on the inside, especially considering that at one point I was very pregnant. So I decided in that moment that it was more loving to myself to clean toilets and do work, and then in exchange just get a bunch of bills that I could take home and put towards groceries.
Like, I want to kind of fast forward, but without skipping it. I want to know what happened between So you're out there, you're pregnant, you're cleaning houses, still in Germany. How do we go from there to when I met you? I met you in 2018, and you were a copywriter, and I joined one of your copywriting masterminds. So without skipping it, I want to know what happened in between.
Yeah. So I gave birth, and I finally sort of got my shit together. And within about 8 weeks or so, I really started to work on a website and sort of, should I call myself a this, or should I choose that? Or, right. And I was sort of just getting the lay of the land of like what my options were. I always knew I was really fantastic at inspiring people. I was really fantastic at like helping people step into like their own greatness. And I didn't want to just hang up my shingle as another coach, like that felt a little like, I don't know. So what I decided is that no matter what I was going to eventually do, basically spending a ton of time learning about marketing and launch strategies and offer creation and how to position them and copy and all those things were going to then really help me, right? Sort of like, that's a nice thing to have in your back pocket, to just be able to whip up your own, right? Like to write your own email sequences and sales pages and craft really beautiful sales messaging. So I decided to position myself as a copywriter, basically, right? Pay me to study this shit for the next like couple of years. That's what I did. And the thing is that I was turned out where it's surprisingly brilliant at this whole thing called copywriting. So within a very short period of time, I remember I started my business officially in January 2016. I got my first paying client over like New Year's. So it was like this thing that I really wanted to manifest. It was like, I want to start this year and have like my first paying client. And then it happened like literally minutes before midnight. I got my first paying client, and then it just took off. It took off because I'm so good at it. And so within a couple of months, I was making, really decent money, going from like, $3,000 a month to $6,000 a month to like $8,000 a month, 12 grand. It just kept building. Because I also paired it with incredible practices around credibility and sort of like that whole positioning piece, right? So I would join Facebook groups and provide value to the community members there. And within a very short period of time, I was sort of, handpicked by people like Bushra Ajar and Laura Belgray, Marie Forleos to sort of, also be in their community and support some of their people, be on some panels, giving feedback. And of course, then there is a huge sort of authority transfer that happens right in that moment. And so I had more clients than I knew what to do with, basically. And that changed also our whole trajectory for our family, because that meant that we could live wherever we wanted. And instead of moving to paradise, we moved to a place where we freeze our butts off for funsies for most of the year,
I want you to tell me, where were you in your journey at that point? This is March 2018. Yeah. You've been in business for a couple of years. You've been making money. Where is your mindset? Where are your offers? What was your plan at that time? Help us understand where you were when we met.
So at that point, I had worked with a few clients and just realizing that copy was too much of a confining label for me at that point. I was working with people on entire launch strategies. I was working with them on offers. I was working with them on mindset, on sales, on, right, like all of like the positioning, all of those things. And just sort of like, we're using words as the tool to make all these things happen, but to call it copy was sort of just like not doing it justice anymore. So I knew I wanted to transition to what I was actually really doing, which was helping people make a shit ton of money, right? It's just sort of like really grow their monthly revenue, which is still what I do. I love like the miraculous sort of transformations where it's like, I was making this and now I'm making this, right? It's like my last year's income looks like pocket money. Wait, what happened? Like that's one of my favorite things to do. So I knew that about myself. And I also knew that I wanted to first just test the waters of what it would be like to run a group. Right. So I decided I'm going to just host this copywriting mastermind. And then once I've done it a few times, I can sort of start to lengthen it and start including some more of those components. And too, that what we did, what wasn't just copy, right? It was sort of just like having conversations about positioning and messaging and niching and right, all of those things. And what are the things that we're saying and where are we saying them and to whom? And right. So just tons of stuff around clarity, becoming really clear. So that's what I did. It started out as a 6-week thing. And then the next time I ran it was a 12-month thing. And then it became a 5-month thing and then a 6-month thing. These days it's a 12-month thing, but also I'm very tempted to go back to 6 because there's about like some excitement and some sweet spottiness around that for me. So yeah, it's been evolving. Where my mindset was that I wanted to get out of one-on-one work at that point, right? Sort of this whole treadmill of creating assets. This too, when you were designing websites, it's like you're massively capping your income, right? Even at that point, I was selling websites at like 25 grand, 5 pages, 5 simple pages, right? Bunch of strategy and the actual assets itself. And it felt like there's an easier thing, or something that comes to me even more easily, right? This is that thing that I shared at the top of our interview. What comes to us most easily, right, is usually also what we struggle to recognize as our most valuable work. So we tend to not actually charge for it, let alone charge premium, right? So I had to sit down with myself where I was like, if I'm really honest, right, it's the conversations I've had with business owners around, do you realize that, there is an opportunity for a high ticket program, that your audience is actually waiting for that? Here's what I would suggest you call it. And here's how I suggest you package it, and then making millions of dollars, right? That was my most valuable work, not the fact that I created a really, kick-ass sales page, although it was a really kick-ass sales page, but also, right, that was my $1 million idea, literally.
Can I actually tell you, support what you're just saying? Because I clearly remember you would record inside our private Facebook group, you would record videos for us to, some were for inspiration, some were just like, you would just turn it on and be like, this is what's happening right now. And I clearly remember one where you looked stressed because something had happened with a client. And if it's okay, I'm gonna say just a few things of the things that I remember.
For sure.
It really, really hit me. This is why it's so present in my mind. You were saying that you had charged someone $3,000 for a launch sequence, and that in your mind, energetically speaking, and this was my first time hearing about the difference between what you're charging and energetically what the number actually is. You said that energetically speaking, it was like 1750, right? But you charge 3,000. So you actually put a lot of responsibility and weight on yourself to completely over deliver, to energetically match the delivery to those 3,000. So you're here working your butt off, and the client is not appreciating it. The client is coming back saying like, well, I was expecting more emails. And you're like, what? Right? And I remember that story because your conclusion of that, right? It wasn't just to come here and vent. Like, your conclusion was like, you guys need to be reviewing your packages and your offers every 3 months. And you know what? I want to stop writing these sequences. I want to do more VIP days. Maybe I should be doing more websites, but like, I need to reconsider. I don't know if you remember that situation at all, but I'd love it if you could add a little bit of context and color. What do you think your younger you was saying when she told us this story?
Oh my goodness. And I remember that spring, because it was the first spring that we were in Canada, and the first spring that I was the sole provider for a family with 2 very, very small kids in completely new country for me, right? So the pressure was on. But, so it was a very, very intense time, right? And I was working with, and this is one of the first thing we do with all of our clients, right? Usually it's not about what is included in a package. It is who is truly poised to have that transformation that you offer, and what do they already need to have in place. And I hadn't approached my own packages with enough discernment around that. It's something that I learned a little bit later in my my trajectory, like how incredibly the who is. So I was working with a lot of people who just didn't have a ton of experience working with copywriters, and didn't have a ton of experience having successful launches, and just wanting to amplify it. Was like, here's my last bunch of money, create magic for me. Oh, you rainmaker person, right? And it put so much stress on me. And I always, one of the first things I say to especially service providers, right? It's like, you have to be, I mean, coaches as well, but, especially if you're going to create something that is supposed to create like a monetary result for people, the who you work with, right, is the most important question. And so what happened was that it didn't matter how much I over delivered and how beautifully written the emails were. They didn't have the launch strategic things in place and the team in place to actually make that launch a success. So I would create my best work and I would still hear that it hadn't been enough or that it was lacking, right? Until I smartened up, right? Hence what you shared. And I was like, no, I need to do different kinds of work with different kinds of people and charge different kind of prices. Because also pricing, right, is an integral piece of positioning, right? It's not the only thing, but it is an important piece of the puzzle. So when I started charging much more premium prices, who I attracted was also truly poised to have the transformation. Yeah.
I am so glad that you brought that up, because I am the kind of person, I'm sure a lot of people listening are, who are self-proclaimed trying to recover people pleasers. And especially if we're providing, right, if we're providing services, and I'm going to tell you something that is super real to me. I bend over backwards for my clients. And normally, right, with the right client, they are very appreciative. They will go above and beyond to give you a testimonial, to tell people about you, and they'll totally appreciate that. Wow, Ina actually cares. She went the extra mile for me, and that makes me feel good, right? That's a great exchange, energetic exchange.
Yeah.
But there will be people that will not appreciate it. There will be people that when you violate an invisible boundary that you never set, they start to expect that that is the norm. And why aren't you doing more? Leading you to burning out, not feeling that energetic exchange of appreciation, and leaving you thinking, well, is there something wrong with me as the service provider? Because I thought I was helping, but the client is not happy. What do I do? I would love to know what you would tell people in that situation that may be experiencing that right now.
Yeah. So there's this thing called like what I call like a high ticket, almost like an upward cycle of success of some kind, right? So you need to practice deeper levels of discernment about who you work with, right? So if you're listening to this, I would 100% just pause this, take a moment to write 10 to 12 things down that this person already needs to have in place, right? So things that maybe normally you would try and help them get into place. But if you were to, right, if we're going to create like this perfect picture of what's possible, right, what ideally have they already done, or do they already have in place, or right, from a mindset perspective or business size perspective, or right, whatever it is already in place, so that you can just sweep in and add that little bit of like magic dust, and everything just transforms so easily. Right? So easy, so much fun, so easy. They're so easy, like satisfied, right, through working with you. So what you get is that you work with a more poised for transformation client. Because of that, right, sort of like that cycle goes up. You have a deeply satisfied clients who's getting results. Because of that, you're getting more high quality referrals. Right? Because of the satisfaction of the client, there's also more testimonials that you get, like high quality, perfect testimonial to attract more people that you want. And because of that, your credibility grows, you can charge more, attract even better clients, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like goes up and up and up. But there's also a shadow side to almost like that goes downwards, where you're not working with the right people. So they're telling you you did a shitty job, but really they were just not poised for transformation. They didn't have the things in place, right? So now you don't get referrals, you don't get testimonials, right? And you start struggling with self-worth in the sense of like, do I even know what the heck I'm doing, right? Like should I charge less? So the key thing is to always make sure that you're in that upward cycle, not the sort of like the shadow downward one, right? And if you can be in that space of truly claiming, right, this is who I want to work with. In an ideal scenario, these are the things they already have in place. Allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to truly dream, right? And draw a line in the sand saying like, these are my people. And then gear your visibility strategy and everything, like where you show up and what you do and the kind of conversations you have and all of that, right? The kind of content you create geared towards that specific person. Like that will be a phenomenal start for you to make sure that you're going upwards, not downwards. Plus, of course, also understanding and remembering who you are and what your gifts are, right? With the constellation of sort of, right, your unique lens and your experiences and your skill sets, to also truly own that the work that comes to you most easily, right, is your most valuable work. And working with people who only need like one conversation with you or one sort of like couple of insights. And quite frankly, that's like worth the $5,000, the 30 grand, the 2,500 grand that they pay you, right? Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for explaining that. That really creates a visual for everybody should be doing. So let's jump a little bit. After that mastermind, you said, you ran it, a couple more times, but there was something that happened between 2018 and 2019 when you created the original, I forget the exact original name of the Facebook group, something like the Wealth Vortex. Do you remember the exact name of your Facebook group when it started?
Yeah, create your money vortex.
Here's what I experienced as an audience member. I saw you go from this copywriter, right? And I know a ton of copywriters, right? They would only dream of making, 6 figures per month, right? You've gotten there. And how you got there, to me, it was like an overnight change of message completely. I saw from 2018 to 2019, all of a sudden, I didn't see you as a copywriter anymore. I saw you as this wealth maven who is here to fix the wealth problems of the female population of the world, right? And your branding was incredible. And I'm talking about your messaging inside the Facebook group. It became about having open conversations about money, open conversations about what is your goal? Like, tell me how much money, and it better be a really stinking big figure. How much do you really want to make, right? I remember one post that I wish I could have found it because I would totally link to it. I remember one post sometime in the span of like 2020 where you were saying, okay, so now I have $500,000 in the bank, right? And I'm like, what is happening? How did this happen? Where did this come from? So I would love to know your perspective. That's me as an audience member watching in awe, right? You skyrocket through it. I want to hear from your perspective. 2018, 2019, 2020, you tell me the story of your change of messaging and how that helped your business.
Yeah. So it was a truly claiming of my ultimate gifts, right? Which is something that I love talking about, because it's ultimately it is, where what everything flows from, right? Like all the goodness, all the blessings, all the overflow. So I started to publicly claim what my gifts were, which is really around sort of like, you come into my space, you will almost like automatically start making more money, because I will just put those prompts out there and you will start seeing what's possible, right? Sort of like that deep excitement and sort of that shift in identity, quite frankly, right? That happens. So I started to publicly claim my real true gifts, weaving that into messaging. I had a tagline at that point around become the Hermes bag of your industry and charge accordingly. It's just like, fabulous luxury positioning, charging. So that worked really, really well. It was very timely. A lot of people were very hungry for that. I had always, like I shared, right? I always gotten clients via other people's communities. And at one point I'm very much just like, and there's also these pictures of me with like a chainsaw and an axe, which you might remember from Facebook. They're all there. But I'm very much like that girl with the axe, where it's just like, okay, whoosh, right? We're severing the ties to what was and what worked. And now I'm going to almost like force myself to create something brand new and different. So I actually live streamed this to the people who were at that point in my program. I said, I'm going to go share my screen and I'm going to unsubscribe from all these groups that I use to get all of my clients. And everybody was like, wait, what? You're doing what? Like, this is like your main lead generation. And I was like, no, from now on, it's like everybody has to come to me, right? Like, I have a group and you can join it. And that's where I'm going to pour all my magic into, right? Like the world, my community. And so I basically checkmated myself to create like this massive leap by cutting myself off from my normal sort of like comfortable supply of new faces in my community, and absolutely loved it. I still love hosting the people in my Facebook community, and people always write me and say it's the best group ever. It's almost like I host like a membership in there. Like if you're in there, like there's so much content and nurturing and stuff like that. Like normally people would put that probably in a membership, but I can't be bothered because I like focusing on my more higher ticket offers. So it's just sort of come to my Facebook group. You'll get a ton of incredible information. We have people just by hanging out there get to like $30,000 a month, and then they're like, yeah, I'll join your program. But instead of going from 10 to 30, now can you help me get to $100,000 a month, right? From 30, 35. So loved it.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm in awe of what you've built, and this is really incredible. I'm so happy and honored that you're here to tell us about this. So let me ask you one question. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have of you as a successful businesswoman?
Well, I have a lot of conversations about this with peers, but I think that what people forget is just like the humanity, right, of the leaders that we have in our space. On the outside, it always looks so incredibly shiny, right? It's like, oh, she just has her shit together or something. And so what I'm really deeply committed to is to also share about the human experience, right, that you have when your business grows really, really quickly. So I'm sort of known for also talking about like the dark side, which sounds like Star Wars or something, going over to the dark side. No, but it's sort of like can we talk about the real experience of entrepreneurship, right? Instead of giving people sort of the sense of inadequacy, right? Oh, like Merel has it figured out. Like she must know something that I don't know, or maybe she is something that I am not, right? When really behind the scenes, every single person that I know, every leader that we, so appreciate has that like deeply human, deeply flawed, like, experience. So the big misconception that people have about me is that, first of all, that they think that I'm doing this on my own. It's like, hell no.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I know that it's going to really resonate with everybody out there. I just have one more question for you.
Yeah.
If everybody who's listening had to do what you're about to tell them to do, to grow in their business, to have a much more successful year, and they have to do it in the next 24 hours, what would that thing be?
I would say that the most important thing that I do, that I have practices around, is looking at my offers, right? Every 3 months, like I decided in 2018, and asking myself, am I actually excited about selling these things? Or do I need to, right? Is it time for a shift? Is it time for a transition? Because very often, right, we run into this thing where it's just not selling, or it's just not selling anymore, right? And then we're like, is there like a marketing problem, or is there a sales problem, or do I need to fix it with ads, or do I, right? All of the things that we pull everything out of the box, right? Sort of like, let's just try all these different things. When really we're not even excited about selling the thing in the first place, right? If we're really, really honest with ourselves. So if you can have like what they call like a come to Jesus moment, right? About your offers and the truth about your level of excitement about those offers, that'd be really, really like a fantastic start. Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're all going to do. Merel Kriegsman, this has been an incredible pleasure for me. Please tell everyone where to go and follow you. If you have a freebie they can download, tell them right now. I will put it in the show notes. This has been an incredible pleasure. More people need to go and follow you and get their minds straight about their wealth. So where can they go do that?
Well, I will make sure that we have the link to my Facebook community, which is really like the hub where we hang, with the pretty link, which by the way, I have, I can send it over to you. Also, I would love to give everyone a promo code to my daily podcast. So I have a daily podcast where I share 5 minutes, $1 billion nuggets about what I'm actually doing myself behind the scenes, strategically, mindset. I'm just taking you basically into my inner world around how I create 1 million after the next, and also, right, not just for myself but also for our clients. And you can just sort of, nurture, like nourish. It's like nourishment, daily nourishment, that if you listen to it consistently, your mind will just like rewire itself for wealth. It's called Wealth Whispers, and I'll make sure that you have the promo code and the link. Yes.
Sounds great. Merel, I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you were able to make the time to come and sit down with me, because this has been an incredible conversation. I've been dying for this conversation for so long. So thank you so much for sharing all of this so generously with us.
My pleasure, truly. Yeah. Thank you for having me.